Brianna Dalton was just 18 years old when she died. She had recently graduated from Forest Park High School, where she was known for being smart and kind. Brianna loved reading and dreamed of becoming a teacher one day. She worked part-time at Barnes& and Noble, where she enjoyed recommending books to customers and talking about her favorite stories. Brianna lived in Forest Park, Ohio, with her stepfather, Irving Dalton, and his new wife, Margarita. Irving was a wealthy businessman, and Margarita was much younger than him. Brianna's own mother had passed away a year earlier, which made life harder for Brianna. She often felt lonely and missed her mom a lot. Despite these challenges, Brianna was a cheerful and creative person. Her teachers at Forest Park High School always said she was a joy to have in class. She was part of the school's drama club and loved acting in school plays. Brianna's best friends often talked about how she would light up any room with her smile and positive energy. In the days leading up to her death, Brianna was busy making plans for her future. She had just attended her graduation ceremony and was excited about starting college in the fall. She had been accepted to Ohio State University and planned to study education. Brianna was looking forward to becoming a teacher and inspiring kids to love reading as much as she did. Brianna's relationship with her stepfather, Irving, was complicated. She seemed very close to him on the surface, but recently confided in her friends about how uncomfortable she felt around him. Irving was known for being charming in public but very controlling at home. Brianna sometimes told friends how she tried to avoid being alone with him as much as possible. Brianna had a bright future ahead of her and many dreams she wanted to fulfill. Her sudden death shocked everyone who knew her, leaving a hole in the hearts of her family, friends, and the community. On the morning of May 14, 2015, at around 7:30 a.m., Margarita Dalton made a shocking discovery. She walked into her stepdaughter Brianna's bedroom and found her lying on the floor, unresponsive. Margarita, who had only been married to Brianna's stepfather, Irving, for a few months, screamed in horror. The room was a mess, with clothes and books scattered everywhere, making it look like a burglary had taken place. Margarita quickly called 911, her hands shaking as she dialed. She told the operator that her stepdaughter was not breathing and that it looked like someone had broken into the house. The 911 operator tried to calm her down and instructed her to check for a pulse, but Margarita was too scared to do anything more than wait for the police and paramedics to arrive. When the emergency services arrived, they found Margarita sitting on the floor outside Brianna's room, crying and holding her head in her hands. The paramedics rushed in and quickly confirmed that Brianna was dead. They noted that she had been strangled with a bra, which was found near her body. There were also signs of a struggle, with furniture overturned and items thrown around the room. Officer Jake Martinez was the first police officer on the scene. He immediately secured the area and started taking statements from Margarita. She was in shock, her voice trembling as she described how she had found Brianna. Margarita said she had been making breakfast when she realized Brianna had not come down yet. When she went to check on her, she found the terrible scene. As the news of Brianna's death spread, the local community was in shock. Friends and neighbors gathered outside the Dalton house, whispering in disbelief. The local news stations, like LULWG Channel 5, quickly picked up the story, and soon, everyone in Forest Park knew about the tragic death of Brianna Dalton. The police arrived quickly at the Dalton house on the morning of May 14, 2015. Led by Detectives Ned and Luster and James Reed, the team wasted no time in securing the area and beginning their investigation. Both detectives were well known in Forest Park for their dedication and thoroughness. Detective Luster, calm and analytical, led the team with precision. Detective Reed, although emotional at the sight of Brianna's body, focused on gathering evidence. Brianna's bedroom was a chaotic scene. Clothes, books, and other items were scattered everywhere, indicating a struggle. The bed was unmade, and the furniture was overturned. Brianna lay on the floor, and it was clear she had been strangled with a bra, which was found near her body. The detectives noted the signs of a staged burglary, meant to cover up the true nature of the crime. The detectives began their work by photographing the entire room and documenting the evidence. They collected fingerprints from the furniture, door handles, and windows. They also took samples of fibers found on Brianna's body and clothing. Forensic experts were called in to assist, using advanced tools like luminol to detect any blood traces that were not visible to the naked eye. Detective Luster interviewed Margarita Dalton, who had found Brianna's body. Margarita was still in shock, her voice shaky as she recounted the events of the morning. She explained that she had gone to check on Brianna when she didn't come down for breakfast. Margarita said she and Irving had gone to bed around 11 p.m. and hadn't heard anything unusual. The detectives also spoke with Irving Dalton. He was calm but defensive, insisting he had been at a business meeting the night before and knew nothing about the crime. He claimed he had come home late and went straight to bed. Irving's demeanor raised suspicions, but the detectives knew they needed more evidence to confirm their theories. Outside, the community was reeling from the news. Neighbors gathered, watching as the police went in and out of the house. The local media, including WLWT Channel 5, reported on the crime, adding pressure on the police to solve the case quickly. As the day went on, the detectives continued to gather evidence. They took Brianna's phone and computer for analysis, hoping to find clues about her activities and interactions in the days leading up to her death. They'd also planned to review security footage from nearby homes and businesses to see if anyone had been near the Dalton house the previous night. The crime scene investigation was just the beginning of a complex and heartbreaking case that would leave a lasting impact on the Forest Park community. Irving Dalton, 58, was the first suspect the police investigated. He was a wealthy businessman known in Forest Park for his success in real estate. Irving was a tall, imposing figure who often wore expensive suits and drove luxury cars. Despite his public charm, many people described him as controlling and manipulative at home. Irving had married Brianna's mother when Brianna was just a child. After her mother's death, Irving became her legal guardian. Their relationship was strained at times and affectionate at others, but recently Brianna confided in her friends about her unease around him. There were even whispers about a romantic relationship between Irving and Brianna, which made him a key suspect in the investigation. Detective Luster and Detective Reed brought Irving in for questioning at the Forest Park Police Department. During the interrogation, Irving maintained a calm and collected demeanor. He told the detectives that he had been at a business meeting the night of Brianna's death and came home late. Irving said he went straight to bed and didn't hear or see anything unusual. The detectives pressed Irving on his relationship with Brianna. He admitted they didn't get along well but denied any wrongdoing. Irving claimed he was strict with Brianna because he wanted the best for her. Despite his composed appearance, the detectives sensed that Irving was hiding something. To understand Irving better, the police interviewed his colleagues and acquaintances. Many described him as a man who liked to be in control. His business partners mentioned that Irving could be very persuasive and often got his way in deals. However, no one had any concrete evidence linking him to Brianna's death. Irving's possible motive for harming Brianna came from the rumors about their romantic relationship. If these rumors were true, Irving might have felt threatened by the possibility of Brianna revealing his actions. This could have led him to take drastic measures to silence her. Despite his calm responses during interrogation, Irving's behavior raised suspicions. He was very careful with his answers, and the detectives noticed he avoided making direct eye contact. They also found it odd that Irving didn't show much emotion about Brianna's death, which struck them as unusual for a stepfather. The detectives decided to dig deeper into Irving's alibi. They checked with his business associates to confirm his whereabouts on the night of the murder. While his colleagues confirmed he was at the meeting, there was still a window of time unaccounted for, which kept the detectives suspicious of Irving. Irving's controlled demeanor, the strained relationship with Brianna, and the rumors about his behavior all pointed to him as a significant suspect. The police knew they needed more evidence to build a stronger case against him, so they continued their investigation. Margarita Dalton, 23, was the next suspect the police investigated. She had married Irving Dalton shortly after Brianna's mother passed away. Margarita had worked as a waitress at Hooters before marrying Irving, and many people saw her as a gold digger. However, those close to her knew she genuinely cared for Irving, despite the power imbalance in their relationship. Margarita was a young and naive woman who often seemed out of place in Irving's wealthy world. She was insecure and anxious, aware of the whispers about her motivations. Despite her attempts to build a relationship with Brianna, the teenager kept her distance, making Margarita's life in the Dalton household lonely and challenging. Detectives Luster and Reed brought Margarita in for questioning. During the interrogation, Margarita was visibly distressed, her eyes red from crying. She told the detectives she had found Brianna's body that morning and had immediately called 911. Margarita explained that she had been making breakfast when she realized Brianna hadn't come downstairs, prompting her to check on the teenager. Margarita described her relationship with Brianna as difficult. She admitted that Brianna never warmed up to her and often ignored her attempts to bond. Margarita said she had tried to be a good stepmother but felt like she was always failing. Despite this, she insisted she had nothing to do with Brianna's death. The detectives asked Margarita about the night of the murder. Margarita said she and Irving had gone to bed around 11 p.m. She claimed they didn't hear anything unusual during the night. Margarita's alibi seemed straightforward, but the detectives needed to verify it. To understand Margarita better, the police spoke with her friends and former coworkers. They described her as sweet but easily influenced. Margarita's friends mentioned that she often felt overwhelmed by her new life with Irving and struggled to fit in. However, no one believed she was capable of harming Brianna. The detectives considered Margarita's possible motive. Given her young age and fragile state, they wondered if Margarita might have felt threatened by Brianna, or if she had acted out of jealousy. However, Margarita's genuine distress during questioning made the detectives doubt this theory. Despite her emotional responses, the police had to explore every possibility. They checked Margarita's phone records and looked for any signs of conflict between her and Brianna. They also reviewed security footage from the Dalton house and nearby areas to see if Margarita's account of the night matched up. Margarita's clear distress and consistent story made the detectives question her involvement in Brianna's death. However, they knew they had to continue their investigation thoroughly, ensuring no stone was left unturned in their search for the truth. Vance Stoltz, 26, was Brianna's boyfriend and the third suspect the police investigated. Vance had a troubled past, including a history of drug addiction. He worked on and off as a mechanic, but often struggled to keep a job due to his erratic behavior. Despite his issues, Brianna had seen something in Vance and tried to help him turn his life around. Vance lived in a small RV on the outskirts of Forest Park. He was known to be passionate but also volatile, and his relationship with Brianna had its ups and downs. Friends described their relationship as intense, with both deep affection and frequent arguments. Detectives Luster and Reed brought Vance in for questioning. During the interrogation, Vance appeared nervous and agitated. He fidgeted in his chair and avoided making eye contact. When asked about the night of Brianna's murder, Vance said he had been at home watching old replays of Days of Our Lives and had fallen asleep early. He claimed he had not seen Brianna for a few days before her death. The detectives pressed Vance about his relationship with Brianna. Vance admitted they had argued recently about his drug use, but he insisted he would never hurt her. He became emotional, repeatedly saying he loved Brianna and wanted to get clean for her. Despite his passionate responses, the detectives noticed inconsistencies in his story. To gather more information, the police spoke with Vance's neighbors. They mentioned hearing loud noises and shouting coming from his apartment on the night of the murder. One neighbor said she saw Vance leave his apartment around midnight and didn't see him return until the early hours of the morning. The detectives also reviewed Vance's phone records. They found several missed calls and text messages from Brianna on the night of her murder. The messages showed that Brianna was worried about Vance and wanted to check on him. This contradicted Vance's statement that he had not seen or heard from Brianna for days. The possible motive for Vance was his unstable relationship with Brianna and his struggle with addiction. The detectives considered that Vance might have acted out of jealousy or anger during an argument. However, without concrete evidence linking him directly to the crime, they couldn't arrest him yet. The detectives decided to search Vance's apartment. They found some suspicious items, including a torn piece of fabric that matched the material of Brianna's shirt. They also discovered drug paraphernalia, indicating Vance had been using drugs recently. Although Vance's behavior and the evidence found raised suspicions, the detectives knew they needed more to make a solid case. They continued to investigate, hoping to uncover the truth about Brianna's tragic death and bring her killer to justice. Hey, true crime case solvers interested in more real-life murder mysteries, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. And do you have any thoughts about this case or have a case of your own you'd like us to investigate? Leave us a comment. Stay safe, true crime case solvers. On May 16, 2015, 2 days after Brianna's death, new evidence came to light. It was a rainy Saturday morning, and Detective Luster received a call from a local resident named Greg who lived a few houses down from the Daltons, said he had found something suspicious in his backyard. Detective Luster and Detective Reed quickly drove to his house. He was waiting for them on his porch, holding an old worn-out shoe. He explained that he had found the shoe near his garbage bins that morning. The shoe looked out of place, and Greg thought it might be connected to the recent crime. The detectives took the shoe back to the station for further examination. They also asked Greg if he had seen anyone near his house on the night of the murder. Greg said he had been away on a business trip and had only returned that morning. He hadn't noticed anything unusual before he left. At the station, forensic experts examined the shoe. They found traces of mud and grass, which suggested it had been worn recently. More importantly, they discovered a small blood stain on the inside of the shoe. The shoe was a men's size 11, which matched the size of shoes Irving Dalton wore. The detectives also checked the shoe against the list of items taken from Brianna's room. They found that it didn't belong to anyone in the Dalton household, raising more questions about its origin. Excited by this breakthrough, the detectives decided to search the area around Greg's house more thoroughly. They hoped to find more clues that could lead them to the killer. As they combed through the neighborhood, they discovered a hidden path that led from Greg's backyard to the Daltons' house. The path was overgrown with weeds and hardly noticeable, but it could have been used by someone trying to avoid being seen. The detectives also reviewed the security footage from nearby houses again, focusing on the area around Greg's house. They noticed a shadowy figure moving along the path late at night, just hours before Brianna's body was found. The footage was grainy, but it was clear enough to show that someone had used the path recently. This new evidence gave the detectives a fresh lead. They decided to re-interview Irving Dalton, pressing him about the shoe and the hidden path. Irving continued to deny any involvement, but the detectives felt they were getting closer to uncovering the truth. With the discovery of the shoe and the hidden path, the investigation took a significant turn. The detectives were now more determined than ever to find Brianna's killer and bring justice to her grieving family and friends. On May 20, 2015, the breakthrough in Brianna Dalton's case came from an unexpected source. Detectives Luster and Reed received a call from the forensic lab. The blood stain found on the shoe matched Irving Dalton's DNA. This discovery was the crucial piece of evidence they needed. Irving Dalton, 58, was a wealthy real estate businessman known for his charm in public and his controlling nature in private. He had married Brianna's mother when Brianna was a child and became her legal guardian after her mother's death. Despite his public persona, whispers about his inappropriate behavior towards Brianna had persisted. Irving had killed Brianna to hide the fact that she was pregnant with his baby, a result of their secret affair. He feared the scandal and the potential legal repercussions would ruin his reputation and destroy his marriage to Margarita. On the night of May 13, 2015, Irving went to Brianna's room to confront her. The confrontation turned violent, and he strangled her with a bra. He then staged the scene to look like a burglary gone wrong. Armed with the new evidence, the detectives planned Irving's arrest carefully. On the morning of May 21, 2015, at 7:00 a.m., they arrived at the Dalton house. Irving answered the door, surprised to see the police. Detective Luster informed him he was under arrest for the murder of Brianna Dalton. Irving tried to remain calm, but his hands shook as they cuffed him and read him his rights. Irving's reaction to his arrest was a mix of shock and resignation. He didn't resist, but kept insisting he was innocent. However, the evidence was overwhelming. The shoe with his blood, the hidden path leading from Greg Thompson's yard to the Dalton house, and the inconsistencies in his alibi all pointed to his guilt. As the news of Irving's arrest spread, Brianna's friends and family were both relieved and devastated. Margarita was in disbelief, struggling to come to terms with the fact that her husband was a murderer. Brianna's friends expressed a mix of sorrow and anger, mourning the loss of their kind-hearted friend and the betrayal by someone who was supposed to protect her. The local community in Forest Park was shaken by the revelations. News outlets like WLUT Channel 5 covered the story extensively, and the case became a talking point on social media. People were shocked that someone so respected could commit such a heinous act. The arrest of Irving Dalton brought a sense of closure to the case, but it was clear that the road to justice for Brianna was just beginning. The detectives knew the trial would be a long and difficult process, but they were determined to see it through and ensure that Brianna's killer was held accountable. The trial of Irving Dalton began on August 10, 2015, drawing significant attention from the local community and media. The courtroom was packed with reporters from WLUT Channel 5 and other news outlets. Brianna's friends and family were present, hoping for justice. The prosecution was led by District Attorney Cole Era, a determined and experienced lawyer in his early 40s. Era presented a compelling case against Irving. He detailed the evidence, including the shoe with Irving's blood, the hidden path, and the inconsistencies in Irving's alibi. Era argued that Irving killed Brianna to hide the fact that she was pregnant with his baby, fearing the scandal would ruin his reputation and marriage. The defense attorney, Militia Bean Turner, was a skilled and persuasive lawyer in her late 30s. Turner argued that the evidence was circumstantial and that Irving was being unfairly targeted. She suggested that someone else, like Vance Stoltz, Brianna's troubled boyfriend, could have committed the crime. Turner emphasized Irving's reputation and success as a businessman, portraying him as a victim of false accusations. As the trial progressed, the emotional toll on Brianna's family and friends was evident. They listened to the details of her death and Irving's betrayal, struggling to hold back tears. Margarita Dalton, Irving's young wife, was a constant presence in the courtroom, looking pale and distraught. On December 5, 2015, after weeks of testimony and evidence, the jury reached a verdict. The courtroom was tense as the foreman read the decision. Guilty of first-degree murder, Irving showed little reaction, maintaining his stoic demeanor, while Brianna's family and friends expressed a mixture of relief and sorrow. The sentencing phase followed, and on December 12, 2015, the judge handed down a life sentence without the possibility of parole. District Attorney Era called the sentence just and necessary for the heinous crime Irving committed. Defense Attorney Turner expressed disappointment but respected the jury's decision. The verdict and sentencing had a profound impact on everyone involved. Brianna's family felt a sense of justice but also deep grief over their loss. Margarita Dalton was devastated, struggling to rebuild her life after discovering her husband's dark secret. Vance Stoltz, who had been a suspect, was relieved to be cleared but remained haunted by Brianna's death. The Forest Park community also felt the effects of the trial. People were shocked that someone as respected as Irving could commit such a crime. The case sparked conversations about trust, betrayal, and the importance of looking out for one another. The trial's conclusion marked the end of a long and painful journey for those who loved Brianna. While justice had been served, the memory of Brianna Dalton would always be a reminder of the tragic events that unfolded in May 2015. After the trial of Irving Dalton, life in Forest Park slowly began to return to normal, though the scars left by Brianna Dalton's tragic death would linger for years to come. For Brianna's family, the verdict brought a sense of closure, yet their grief remained palpable. Brianna's mother, who had passed away years before, was remembered fondly by neighbors who attended a memorial service at the local church. The family held a small gathering afterward, where they shared stories and memories of Brianna. Margarita Dalton, who had stood by Irving throughout the trial, struggled to come to terms with the reality of her husband's actions. She sought solace in her friends and church community, finding strength in their support. Over time, Margarita began to rebuild her life, though she remained haunted by the betrayal she had endured. Vance Stoltz, Brianna's boyfriend and briefly a suspect in the case, faced his own challenges. He entered rehab shortly after the trial, determined to overcome his addiction and honor Brianna's memory. With the support of his family and friends, Vance made progress, taking steps toward a healthier, more stable life. In May 2016, a year after Brianna's death, the community gathered at Forest Park High School for a memorial service. Friends, neighbors, and classmates shared memories of Brianna, lighting candles in her honor. The ceremony provided comfort to those who had known Brianna and served as a reminder of the importance of cherishing loved ones. As time passed, Brianna Dalton's story faded from the headlines, replaced by new events and challenges facing the world in 2015. Yet for those who had known her, Brianna's kindness, creativity, and dreams of becoming a teacher remained vivid memories, a legacy that would endure.